about to join Don Neuen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, and Denise Simon, host of the Denise Simon Experience, for a weekly situation report, or SITREP. 18 hours a day, Denise Simon lives her life as an Intel Analyst. 18 hours a day, Don Neuen lives his life in the world of rock and roll. 1 hour each day, Neuen receives a daily SITREP from Simon. Welcome to the Drive Time Situation Report. Fasten your seatbelt. You're now in Don Neuen's car, and he is calling in for his SITREP.
Hello.
What's up, Denise Simon?
It's the re-election campaign is officially kicking off.
Well, I don't have a problem with it. I guarantee that our listeners don't have a problem. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's Drive Time Sit Rep. My name is Don Neuen, and on the other end of this conversation, you've got the stellar Denise Simon. For those of you that are joining us for the Drive Time Sit Rep for the first time, I'll do a brief explanation because we've been doing this show now for a couple of years. So quite frankly, Denise and I are probably wondering where you've been. But nevertheless, we welcome you to the show. I am in my personal car, headed home late on what day is it? It's Tuesday. Late on a Tuesday night in rain, Denise Simon, and I have called in to get a situation report or a sit rep from my much valued, greatly appreciated, overworked, and underpaid Intel Analyst, Denise Simon. Denise, let's start the show off with Merry Christmas to you, girl.
Merry Christmas.
And a belated Happy Easter worshiper to you.
Yeah, that one's just not going to go away, is it?
Nope, and we're not going to let it go away. Every week, we are going to remind our beloved listeners how much we appreciate the fact that after 8 years of having to stand in the Christian shadows and not be able to publicly acknowledge Merry Christmas without being chastised and ostracized and sometimes investigated by the Internal Revenue Service, we now are able to wish each other Merry Christmas. So Denise and I do that every week. Now,
we couldn't even say "In God We Trust" either.
Nope. And we do that on this show as well. The other thing is this, ladies and gentlemen, you might recall that during the Easter weekend that certain individuals, and who shall remain nameless, but primarily Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, did not label Christians, but rather Easter worshipers. They just can't bring themselves to calling Christians, or even acknowledging the presence of Christians. So Denise and I refer to ourselves each week as Easter worshipers. Right, Denise?
Sarcastically.
Exactly. Seething and overflowing with sarcasm. Festering with sarcasm. All right, so Denise, we're going to timestamp the show here, and I need to preface that with the fact that today has been a day from hell. I have not even opened Drudge, much less been able to follow anything that was going on. I know that Trump is down in the Tampa area, and I would say that he has probably gone to Culver's, unlike Denise Simon, who refuses to go on my recommendation to go.
I don't refuse to go. I just can't get there. As a matter of fact, I happened to pass one tonight and thought about stopping, but I couldn't do that because I had to get here
to do this show.
Right.
Every week, there's an excuse from Denise Simon as to why she cannot go take me up on my suggestion for her to eat a butter burger at Culver's. But I will not back down. I will not give up. I believe in the butter burger. I believe in the cheese curds. I believe in the custard milkshakes that Denise Simon has yet to ingest.
I wouldn't have one of those anyway.
What, a custard milkshake?
Right.
What the hell's wrong with you? Are you un-American?
Yeah, I guess.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're in my car with me as I'm driving home, and you, along with me, are about to get, for the next approximately 50 minutes, a situation report. Denise is going to bring us up to speed and make each and every one of us, starting with me, appear to be more intelligent tomorrow morning than we actually are. So, Denise, let's timestamp it. And what do you say? In the immortal words of Chris Cuomo, what do you say we get after it? Let me tell you something.
9:22 p.m. Eastern on the 18th of June in the year of our Lord 2019.
Thank you, Denise. That is so eloquent.
Okay.
I mean, I'm being serious.
All right.
I'm serious. Hey, when I just did, let me tell you something. Who did that remind you of?
I have no idea.
Oh, come on. Didn't you ever watch In Living Color?
I don't think so.
Ooh. With the Wayans brothers and Jim Carrey?
No.
Oh, Niecy. That was Fire Marshal Bill. Let me tell you something. Don't mess with matches. And he talks like that because he's had 18th degree burns all over his body. So his lips don't go together properly.
Okay, Don.
All right, now look, on the break, I want you to pull up Fire Marshal Bill, okay?
No.
Yes, come on, play along. All right, let's get after it. What do you think we just get after it, Denise?
All right, well, let's go back 25 years, shall we?
Sure.
What happened 25 years ago this week?
I gotta do the math and figure out what year it was 25 years ago. I'm in a damn car. Help me out here.
It was 1995, wasn't it?
1995. That was the year before a bomb went off in Atlanta when I was at the Olympics.
Indeed.
Centennial Park.
It did that.
1995. Let me think of what else happened. I'm sure you'll tell me.
Yeah, because I learned a lot of things that year because I was glued to the TV for a very long time during this period.
Oklahoma bombing.
We had the white Ford Bronco chase on the 405.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
If
now,
the glove don't fit, you must have quit.
And this is really kind of interesting because only yesterday, on the actual day of the juice is loose on the 405, yesterday on the anniversary, OJ decides that he's going to become a Twitter user, so he has his own Twitter account now.
I saw that, and he posted some BS video.
And we have to remember some very interesting names, certainly beyond Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, because, we had so many others in there that have, been around for, in and out for a very long time. And they've all kind of faded away from us. But we also learned about DNA back then. DNA wasn't even in use back then as it is today. As a matter of fact, DNA is in such big use is that now we're using it as testing migrant, illegal immigrant family people to see if they're really family, and then we're finding out that at least 35% are not even related to each other, which means that we're renting kids.
Right.
So there's a lot that has we've come away with as a result of the juice, if you will. Heisman Trophy, Southern California football, DNA, withholding evidence. You see all those kinds of things that we kind of began to learn 25 years ago.
I do.
I mean, that's a long time, isn't it?
A long time.
And he was acquitted. Yet in the court of public opinion, he was guilty, wasn't he?
In my court of my public opinion, yes.
And yet nobody did anybody bother to look for anybody else that may have, murdered those two people?
Well, I don't know. I don't recall that anybody was necessary.
Well, they had 25 years ago. Look, nobody bothered. Why? Because the guy was guilty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I never really thought that he wasn't guilty. And it was bone crushing to me because he was a hero of mine as a kid.
Well, he was for a lot of reasons. But I think there were a lot of takeaways, from that whole case. A couple of his attorneys on what was it, the Dream Team are dead. One is destitute, living in New York.
Who's that one?
Who was the real famous attorney that he had? I was just reading about him the other day. Let me see.
Bailey.
Yes, F. Lee Bailey.
Yeah.
He's stone cold broke. Do you know that?
No.
Yeah. Yep.
But I got to be honest, and all of my lawyer friends, please don't take this the wrong way. I don't really get upset when I find out that a lawyer is stone broke.
But he had
it's just because I paid so much in legal fees over the past few years.
Well, he had quite the reputation back then too, and he certainly fell out of fame and fortune. But you've got Robert Kardashian; he's dead. And then we had Alan Dershowitz. He was part of that whole dream team too.
Well, he's just got less hair, but he's still kicking.
Yeah.
What's the woman's name?
Marsha.
Marsha.
She was the prosecutor.
Yeah. What about Chris Durden, the bald-headed black guy?
Marsha Clark. Yep.
Well, didn't she have some short-lived career on CNN or something?
She tried one, and I think that's actually where we came to learn about Greta Van Susteren too. A lot of these people were all CNN types that have eventually left, the CNN and went elsewhere. A lot of them are over at Fox because they just couldn't stand it over at CNN any longer. Yeah. But his dream team, by the way, just so you know this, was costing him $50,000 a day.
Can't say I'm upset. Are you?
No. But the one thing that I've always taken away from that case, and I think we can apply today, is what evidence is there that gets dismissed or not entered into the case, and what questions or witnesses should be brought in for interrogatories that are not.
You mean like Cato Caitlin?
Well, he was brought in.
I know.
But
and how effective was he?
But here's the thing. Let's apply that to today, because interestingly enough, we are in the throes still, even post-Mueller report, on all these questions and people that we still have. And as we go down this path, because we've got a new AG, Bill Barr, we still kind of wonder, we still are learning about people here, aren't we? You know, we're learning about these people from the FBI. We're learning about these people, you know, in the Hillary world. We're learning about these foreign operatives that the Brennan CIA called. And so it's kind of like, why are we learning about this now? Why didn't we learn about this during, you know, the whole Hillary thing or the Obama thing? Because this all started under Obama. So there are a lot of lessons that I personally learned. I don't like to talk about myself, particularly on radio, but it's kind of like, what are people not talking about that they should be? And, you know, you can't ask the questions of these officials. I can't ask them, but that doesn't keep us from having these questions, correct?
Correctamundo. That's Spanish, Denise.
I know that. So here we are. We are living in a world where people that are guilty, even in the court of public opinion, and I would argue certainly when it comes to DNA, somehow got off. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit, which is kind of like where Hillary is, right?
Yeah. If you use bleach bit, you must acquit.
See? I rest my case.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't think the fat woman is sung. Therefore, I don't think the opera is over.
Well, we truly do need to have some consequence. There needs to be a punishment. When you have both Democrats and Republicans that are saying that they don't trust their government, we've got a bigger problem than I can think. I mean, I'm seeing now that we've got people that are much more knowing than you and I are, and our listeners that are right there in Washington, D.C., and they don't have a lot of use for the new FBI director, Chris Wray.
I'm wondering why he's still there. What are your thoughts on why he's there?
Well, I think he's necessarily trying to rehabilitate the Bureau, but
Okay, why do you really think he's there?
Well, you know, I mean, I guess we really have to ask the Trump people, because they put him there.
If I was Trump, I'd have snatched his ass into my Oval Office the day after, and maybe even the afternoon after he testified in Congress and couldn't come up with the word spy for some oddball reason. But I'm not Trump.
And, you know, I guess we can almost kind of carry that over to Shanahan now as what happened today, too, correct?
I have no idea what happened today with Shanahan. I've been slammed all day, Niecy. I have no idea what's happened. When you hit me and said, "Oh my God, there's so much going on. We got to do the show tonight," I'm going, what the hell went on? I don't know what went on today.
Okay, well, Shanahan was named as the acting defense secretary after Trump fired Mattis. And I believe his confirmation hearing was supposed to actually start today. I could be wrong on that. But something kind of was weird going on here because he did not travel to Normandy. A lot of people may not have realized that. And Mike Pompeo traveled to CENTCOM today, actually last night, and had the visit today. But Shanahan wasn't with them. So what the heck's going on? Well, officially Shanahan withdrew his name. So now we don't know necessarily where we are, except that we might have the Secretary of the Army, I think his name is Espy, that is being named. as the interim secretary until he can get confirmed. It's almost as though Trump doesn't want a full-blown secretary, that they're perfectly fine with an acting person. I'm not so sure I like that. Do you?
No, but it's something that we've seen, unfortunately, all too often in the Trump administration. Acting individuals.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, his name is Mark Esper, not Espy, Esper. And so, Shanahan is officially out on Friday, and he submitted his letter of resignation officially today, and he really cited all personal reasons, going back into his former marriage some, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, whatever that number was, because apparently there was a lot of physical violence in that marriage.
Okay, so the guy's got some major skeletons in his closet, and he backed out.
Yeah, but the question is, Don, every secretary has to go through an FBI review. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like Trump. Why didn't he ask Shanahan, hey, dude, you got anything that we need to know about? Or,
well, on top of that, what kind of an individual, first of all, what kind of an individual would abuse their spouse physically and verbally and emotionally? What kind of an ass, oops, I'm going to have to bleep that. What kind of an ass would do something like that? Secondly, even if you've got somebody that's like that, they are clueless to the point where if you get nominated for something like this, that's not coming out, that it's not going to be a problem.
Well, apparently it was actually the other way around. She was actually physical with him. And apparently they had
really?
Yes, and apparently he had actually hit her in defense, or self-defense. But apparently then there was a son who actually hit his mother a couple of times with a baseball bat, left her unconscious in a pool of blood, and cracked her skull, and she had to have some surgery. So there was he spent all these years, trying to rehabilitate and heal the wounds and all those other kinds of things. Now, I would have said, if Trump had come tapping me on the shoulder, hey, let me give you the real story here. But if I were the Trump people, I would have already said, look up this guy and see what he's all about before we even go tap him on the shoulder.
True.
So,
and I guess since I didn't know that story, I should apologize for referencing him as an ass.
Well, I think USA Today, they apparently came out with a pretty graphic biography story on Shanahan today. So he had no choice but to bail out.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. But we had to know, the Trump White House had to know about this, because a secretary or even an acting secretary of defense would not have not traveled to the 75th anniversary of D-Day to Normandy, and he didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
So something's sideways there.
Yeah. All right, we got about a minute. Denise, please make a note. I want to ask you when we get back from the break I've got a question about Trump Jr.'s, Don Jr.'s closed door testimony that took place. So please help me remember to ask that question when we get back from the break, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Drive Time SITREP. On one end of this conversation is the stellar Denise Simon. On the other end of the conversation is me, your buddy Don Neuen. We hope that you will stick with us through this quick 2-minute break that we've got to take at the bottom of the hour. We'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Drive Time SITREP.
Check us out on the
Drive Time SITREP, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Don Neuen. You've got on the other end of this conversation Denise Simon. Before we went to break, we were talking about a glove. If it doesn't fit, it must be quit. We are remembering 25 years ago in which we all endured the O.J. Simpson highway low-speed chase that took place in a white Bronco, and then months and months and months of court hearings with the Asian guy as the judge.
Tito.
Ito.
Yep. Ito.
Nope. No K.
Ito. That's right.
Like tonight, when I get home, I'm going to Ito a pot roast.
Okay.
How about that?
Cool.
All right. So, do you mind if I bring up the question that I had before we went to break, so I don't forget about it? It's going to totally interrupt your flow.
No, that's cool.
All right. So, I think it was last week that Don Jr., may have been the week before, that Don Jr. goes into closed door testimony again, and I don't know about you, I haven't heard squat about it. Now,
well,
granted,
because there really wasn't
to hear.
There really wasn't anything. What they were simply doing is taking Michael Cohen's testimony. Apparently, there were some still open questions that they wanted to have available for Trump Jr. to answer. It was they carved out 3 hours. It didn't take 3 hours. It took a lot less. And there was nothing that a Junior changed, or he may have just validated or cleared some stuff up. It was really a formality by the Senate Intelligence Committee, and nothing more.
But it was a wonderful opportunity for the mainstream media to blow it completely out of proportion again and make it such a devastating event that would take place against the Trump administration, right?
And it clearly didn't. So there was nothing there.
Exactly.
Especially if you're going to have to compare it to Michael Cohen, who obviously had lied, and Trump Jr. contradicted some of Cohen's claims or cleared some things up, or said that's not right. Let me explain how this went down, and that was it. So when Trump Jr. got out of the hearing, he did not discuss anything with anybody in the media. He just said he was happy to comply and make some clarifications. It's over. It's done with. He left. Goodbye. We're finished. Case closed. Last nail in that coffin.
All right. Well, thank you for bringing me up to speed on that. Now, wherever you want to pick up after that brief but poignant interruption, have at it.
Well, let's talk about Iran, because now we have the Senate. We got Democrats in both houses that are saying because the relationship between the United States and Iran has gone sideways, there's nobody to blame for this except for Trump. So I guess Trump got his hands on some limpets, and he found some squirrely guys in some fast boats and decided to pinpoint some tankers in the Persian Gulf and go magnet or nail them to the side of the tankers just above the waterline, leave, do some remote explosions, and have a couple of them catch on fire. So that's all Trump's fault, right?
Right.
Well, to listen to the Democrats, that's almost, without saying it, because the Iranians did that, it's Trump's fault.
Well, everything's Trump's fault, Denise.
Well, everything was Bush's fault too, right?
Sure.
Okay, but
listen. One of my buses had a problem with the differential or the rear end. I happen to think that Donald Trump had something to do with that.
No doubt.
No doubt. In Rock Springs, Wyoming. He's omnipresent, Denise.
All right. So here's where we are. It was announced yesterday that we are sending 1,000 additional troops over to this region. And of course, everybody's saying, okay, then we're preparing for war. Well, the troops have nothing to do. They're not combat anything. They're more intelligence gatherers than anything else. You got a few that are going to be working on surveillance aircraft. You got a few that are going to be working on ground communications. And so they're not combat types. They're more intelligence and surveillance and communications types. Now,
yeah, but Trump wants to drop a nuke.
Yeah, sure. So here's where we are, and I want to explain this pretty carefully. If there was going to be a military conflict, a true military conflict, where Trump is going to authorize the Pentagon and Central Command and whoever else, the Marines, to go in there and bomb the place, we don't do that on a whim. We practice, and we practice, and we practice, just like we did with the Abbottabad raid to get Osama bin Laden. Okay? So we are likely looking at targets. We are likely looking at people. We are likely working with the Emiratis, the Israelis, the Brits, the Saudis, and anybody else that we can work with. Now, it's fascinating to me that while we have these Democrats here saying that we are, just a hair away from pulling some big, huge triggers here, that nobody has asked the Democrats, how come it is that we had these 4 tankers and then we had 2 more? Where were our allies? Why didn't Germany send some Navy? Why didn't the French send some Navy? You see what I'm saying? No, it was us, because we are responsible. We take the lead in order to keep navigation channels open, just like we have assured in the South China Sea. We're doing that in the Persian Gulf and through the Straits of Hormuz. So, we have some of the European leaders that were kind of, maybe we believe this evidence about these limpets on these 2 recent tankers, but maybe we don't. But the one real holdout was Angela Merkel, and she always is. But finally today, she said that she had seen enough evidence. So she is now accepted the evidence and agrees with the United States. Great. Now, Europe, we've left the nuclear deal, the joint plan of action. What is Europe going to do?
And what are they indicating they're going to do?
Well, the only one that stepped up to the plate is Britain. Nobody else has yet. And that's okay, because I believe
what did Britain say? What did the Brits say? Are they out of it?
No, they're in it. They're sending some naval assets.
No, I'm talking about the Iran deal. Are they all still in it?
Oh, yeah. As of today. Now, that may change. That may change as of today.
Okay. We'll see.
So my point in saying this is the hard line that the United States has taken with Iran, because remember, John Kerry and Barack Obama said with the comprehensive joint plan of action and the $150 billion that we gave them, they're going to be normal citizens of the globe, and they're going to behave now, which they clearly have not done since that time.
Correct.
All right. Now, what have we done? We left the nuclear deal, and we're trying to get Europe to do the same thing in order to get Iran back to the table. That hadn't worked out because Europe needs their cheap oil, Iran's cheap oil. And Japan does too, because Japan was buying cheap Iran oil, because we allowed some waivers in order for them to do that. So the day that these limpets were on these 2 tankers, both of the cargoes, they weren't oil tankers, by the way. They were energy tankers, but they did not have oil in them. But the cargo on those two tankers belonged to Japan to be delivered to Asia. And so Shinzo Abe happened to be in Tehran the very day that this happened. Wouldn't you like to know what Shinzo Abe said to the mullahs and to the Ayatollah? I want to know that more than anything.
Yeah.
But so here we are. We are in the middle of a trade deal with China. China is working with Iran too, because China wants to get, I would say, Iran into their debt trapping, because China wants to build some things for Iran, but Iran doesn't have any money. Iran is operating on what is called their National Development Fund. The National Development Fund at one point had a high balance of $91 billion. $91 billion for a country to keep it afloat is nothing. And so Iran has had to make some substantial withdrawals here from the $91 billion in the last 2 years because of the hardline sanctions that the United States has taken. And they've actually they've taken some money out of the development fund and handed over to at least 2 banks in order to keep the banks afloat. But they've also had to pay Bashar al-Assad in Syria because he doesn't have any money either. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, and this is why we're not going to war. We're prepared for war just in case Iran wants to pull a trigger aimed at some target that shouldn't be aimed, which is the reason we're going through these motions, because they would be the stupid ones, not us. We would not take an offensive strike on Iran. But Iran...
Do me a favor, for all the liberals that may be listening, repeat that last sentence.
The United States is not going to be the first to pull the trigger. Iran would be first to pull the trigger. They've already essentially done that with these tankers. So we would respond in kind, but we wouldn't turn Iran into sand. We would not do that. So that is for the benefit.
It already is, so it'd be a moot point. But I agree with you. We're not going to turn the sand into glass.
Precisely. But Iran, let's not forget, they have taken over an awful lot of Iraq. They still have some nasty Shiite militias operating in Iraq. They essentially took out a friendly government to the United States that was there once in Yemen and has now essentially been run by the Houthis, which is a Shiite militia in Yemen, that we are helping the Saudis fight because they keep firing missiles into Saudi Arabia. And they have obviously destabilized Lebanon, and for sure they own Syria. So these are the moving parts that those in the Pentagon and certainly in the Mike Pompeo State Department are having to put on the table. Now, between the National Security Council, which is led by John Bolton, and the Secretary of State, Pompeo, they're leading this effort, and they should, as I see it. We want to use all diplomatic options that we possibly can. Iran, I would say, is a much bigger thorn in our side than Venezuela is. But there's not a complete disconnect there either. So we are such an integrated world, and so many of these rogue countries are such partners with each other. And these rogue countries are happy to do business with the non-rogue countries like those in Europe, that we can't just get real aggressive and, push the Ayatollahs and the mullahs out and bomb the place into glass, because it would hurt Europe, and we can't do that.
Yeah, I got you. Let me ask you this. With regard to what happened last week with Iran, What is the position that Turkey is taking on it?
Almost nothing, which is really kind of fascinating. Not a peep out of Erdogan.
That's why I asked that question.
But here's a fascinating component to all of that. And that is what I call the land bridge or the air bridge. Because Iran's ultimate goal is to have be one of maybe 3 countries with exclusive dominion over the Mediterranean and the Straits of Hormuz, or the Persian Gulf. And so Iran, and this is part of the reason that Mattis is no longer with us, is because Mattis didn't believe that there was a land bridge or an air bridge being built or being used by Iran, and there clearly is. And this bridge has everything to do with Syria and, excuse me, even Turkey. And so
why did Mattis not buy into that?
Good question. I don't know. I think he was, given the people that he wanted to even have work for him, I think he was more of a progressive Democrat than he ever was a good Secretary of Defense for this administration.
That's disappointing. I mean, he was a disappointment, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And I think you and I both were kind of on the same page with this. We were excited about.
I never wanted him there to start with. I mean,
really?
No. You want him to run the Marines, okay, fine, but I don't want him running the Pentagon.
Would you feel he was too much of an academia head?
No, I don't think he. I think it was above his pay grade. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, he wasn't. I mean, he had kind of the mad dog reputation out there, but he had that as a Marine and not as a secretary of a cabinet.
Yeah. Good point.
But the reason I think that Turkey has been kind of quiet is because the one militia, if you will, that Turkey fought against the United States and had no tolerance for was the PKK, otherwise known as the Syrian Kurds. But those Kurds are the ones that are keeping that land bridge from being completely effective going from Iran into Syria. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's almost as though Turkey wants to be part of that land bridge too, but the United States has essentially put a blockade in a piece part of that land bridge. Now, why is this land bridge important? Well, it's because of the transportation of weapons, the transportation of monies, the transportation of people, militants, vehicles, all those kinds of things. So we have to stop that. Now, is that part of necessarily a target package for the United States if we have to go in and respond in some way, much like we did with Operation Praying Mantis? The answer to that is yes. So this is why we're not going to war, certainly anytime soon, unless Iran goes really stupid on us. And Mike Pompeo said that today. After his long meeting with CENTCOM today, he came out and did a little bit of a presser, made some statements, took a couple of questions, and he left. And he even said, we are there because we don't want, we are prepared for Iran to do something stupid, but we're here to say, Iran, don't do anything stupid.
Well, I do like Pompeo. I hope you feel the same way.
Thank God. I really watch his style, and if you really listen how he carefully selects his words, he's really telling you more by his word selection if you're paying attention. So between he and Bolton, if we didn't have those two there right now, I shudder to think where we would really be here at this moment. If for nothing else, the Straits of Hormuz to be closed off by now.
All right, 2 things. First of all, it's ironic that you would mention Pompeo's words, because earlier in tonight's show, I was thinking about asking you the question that I'm about to ask you, and now I will. Who do you feel with the United States has more importance and stress and critical use of every word that comes out of his or her mouth? Let me just back up a little bit. Clearly, Trump can move the market in some major ways depending on what he says.
He just sends out a tweet and the market goes up 200 points.
Exactly. But I'm talking about verbiage is the most valuable per word of anybody in the United States government, man or woman. Who do you think it is?
Well, clearly to me, it is Pompeo.
I was thinking the same thing.
I think he has got more weight on his shoulder than probably any other government employee out there right now. And that includes our, Lighthizer, the trade representative, and, all of the others that are working out all these other deals between China and, Mexico and all these other kinds of things. Because Pompeo owns all of those piece parts too, or as well. And two people that are significant that I think that Trump did a stellar job in appointing in a cabinet position where it requires confirmation was Nikki Haley and Pompeo.
Yep.
And I was still to this moment very disappointed that we couldn't keep Haley at the United Nations.
I agree. All right, we got less than 5 minutes. I want to ask you, if you don't mind, bring us up to speed on what's going on with all of the investigations that people like you and I are sitting around praying to God Almighty will bring justice to the United States once again.
It appears that the Michael Horowitz Inspector General's report is not going to come out in June. It appears now it's going to be late July. The Huber operation has been put on hold too. The two most important things that are going on with all of these investigations is Durham and Barr. And
is that why the other investigations have been put on hold?
That's what's being inferred. Not confirmed, but inferred. That, based on what Barr can come up with and Durham's team can come up with, and he's got a fairly sizable team, I would argue it might even be as large as that of the Mueller team, might alter or be an annex to the Inspector General's report by Horowitz.
Okay.
So if we're expecting anything anytime soon, don't bother. Go to the beach.
Yeah, I got you on that. Are you still, as to the best of Denise Simon's ability, do you have any hope at all that Barr and Durham are going to come up with something that would be vindication?
I have a hope, but I don't operate on hope.
I know you don't. But the fact that I got you to say that is freaking huge, Denise.
Well, I mean, you got to have it, but I don't operate on. I live in a world of reality, and I'm almost a pessimist because we've been sideswiped too many times. But this interesting thing here, where the State Department in the last couple of days responded to quite the questionnaire from Senator Grassley on Hillary Clinton's emails, that the State Department did fess up that there were more than 24 occasions where rules or laws or protocols were broken, and that there was some number of people over at the Hillary State Department that had these violations. We don't know what those disciplines were, but apparently there was some, I would say, whacking of the knuckles with a ruler, discipline. And so these people get disciplined, but Hillary doesn't, which kind of takes me back to the very beginning of this drive time thing when I was talking about the consequence of O.J. Simpson getting off, and so is she. So you got people at the State Department that have been called on the carpet, maybe not so aggressively as I would have necessarily applied, but nonetheless, that investigation, by the way, is not complete. What the State Department gave to Grassley was really kind of an interim report. When that one's finalized, we don't know. But the point is that Hillary leaves her State Department in a wake of destruction. And that wake of destruction, I would argue, is clearly not finished because it was her State Department, well, John Kerry's State Department, that cooperated with the FBI and the John Brennan CIA and the Obama White House on all things Russia dossier world.
I still say that I'm absolutely thrilled that you used the term and you said that you have hope, because I'm telling you, for I don't know how many years that you've been giving me sit reps, when I ask a question like that, your answer is always very quickly, no.
I don't I hope there is, but my gut feeling is somebody going to go to prison? The answer is no. I just don't see that's going to happen.
Okay, well, you just blew that little warning.
Well, is somebody going to, they may get a punishment as much as Dinesh D'Souza got, but it won't be anything more than that. Not that his was, it was bad enough for him, for whatever minute law that he broke, and the laws that are being broken now include what he broke and more.
Absolutely. Well, we got like 20 seconds. Do you think this could have some significant impact on the 2020 election in the House and the Senate and in the White House?
If these people stay by the script and we have a good author of the script, the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, there we go.
We cannot deviate from the script.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this brings to close yet another Drive Time Sit Rep episode. We sure do appreciate you joining us. Denise, you got to take us home.
Thanks for listening. Good to have you with us. God bless America.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.